Hello, and welcome back to another video. If you're looking for recommendations about manhwa to read, then here are some that I've read recently that might be of interest. Manhwa titles are timestamped in the video for your convenience. Our first manhwa for today is The Maxed Out Player, a modern manhwa that I've currently read up to chapter 120 on. Its main character is Han Ju-hyuk, an individual living in a version of modern Korea where a VR game has once again taken over society. And even from a young age, people play it as if it was school, etc., or just society in general. Ju-hyuk, though, clearly has some bad luck as he gets kidnapped by his master from the tutorial area and is made to train and in some cases suffer for 20 years. After those 20 years are done though, he's finally able to roam around the world like any other normal person. Of course, he isn't just some normal person, instead he's quite the overpowered being but just requires some adjusting to as some of his skills and stats have been sealed until he achieves certain feats in the game. Another overpowered manhwa for the masses. The story is 5 out of 10. Overpowered action manhwas in the backdrop of a fantasy game is definitely not an original plot point. This one tries to be a little different at first by making Ju-hyuk the supposed main villain of the whole game, but let's just say this manhwa takes a drastic turn out of nowhere that is both random and somehow important. Like, it feels like you get slapped for paying attention to the actual plot, weirdly enough. The characters, though, are 7 out of 10. Destined to be the villain and having to fight potentially the full population of the game is at least an interesting trope to present. Add the normal tenacity of Ju-hyuk as a person and overall comes off decently well. Otherwise, there isn't really much character development past the surface levels, but instead more forced entry of people that block Ju-hyuk's way. The art is 8 out of 10. The only decent part about this manhwa for me is the art style that it presents. It clearly doesn't take itself seriously and shows itself as an overpowered, comedic, and ultimately fun action manhwa that has the main character take on the whole entire server, at least at first. So if you're a fan of overpowered game manhwas and wanted one that's really more about being a comedic fun journey instead of actually trying to portray a decent story, and personally that's a write-off from me, then The Maxed Out Player just might be worth a shot. This next manhwa to take a look at is I'm Really Not the Devil's Lackey, a fantasy manhwa that I've currently read up to chapter 175 on. The protagonist is Linji, and I apologize if I butchered that, that's my best attempt at this right now. He's a bookworm that through a transactional deal gets transported or reincarnated to another world to become a bookshop owner. Considering his love of books and the offer to be able to read more of them, considering it's another world entirely, he accepted, of course. Now, running this bookstore, a variety of interesting individuals are outside of Linji's bookstore, and there are actually quite a number of conflicts happening that he's just not aware of. Us, as the readers, though, are thrusted right into the immediate situation that's happening in this new fantasy world, and through this we learn more about the particular understanding, or more like misunderstanding, that happens throughout. The story is 8 out of 10. Normal bookworm becoming an owner of the bookshop in a fantasy world is a definite interesting hook to start with. What makes it even better though is the slow, gradual development of the world around Linji's bookstore. Plus the fact that he is viewed as this mysterious, powerful figure puts the cherry on top. What doesn't help this weird situation is the books he recommends are normal to him, but very extraordinary to others. The characters are 9 out of 10. To put it simply, everything stems from a misunderstanding of Linji's words, actions, and overall recommendations of books. Any customer that walks in, especially if they're new, for some reason interprets Linji's words as something completely different than what he intended. At the end of the day though, these individuals will benefit from the misunderstanding, which culminates in even more hilarious misunderstanding. The world building and various factions outside the bookstore are great additions to the overall plot. The art is also 9 out of 10. This dichotomy between Linji's perspective and how others perceive him is perfectly captured in the art style. My guess is the more supernatural depictions are based on more Lovecraftian types of lore if I had to take a guess. No matter the inspiration though, it is definitely effective in delivering the sheer fear, awe, complexity of the scenes that Linji's customers particularly experience. So if you're a fan of manhwas from a Chinese origin and my summary or descriptions about its events seems interesting to you, then give I'm Really Not the Devil's Lackey a try. Also, thanks to Miyayumi for recommending this manhwa. It's Okay to Be Left Out is the name of our next manhwa to take a look at. It's a romance manhwa that I've currently read up to chapter 38 on. Yu Ja-in is the name of its main character, and she is an aspiring designer that was hired by a small but capable designing firm set in modern-day Korea. As part of her working environment, she reports to her team lead, and wouldn't you know it, she has a crush on that very same team lead. To make things not as awkward, she keeps it mostly to herself and waves it off by treating it like a fangirl type attitude instead. Due to them working on a project together though, some unforeseen circumstances emerge, and Ja-in and her team lead ends up sharing secrets with one another. Ja-in with her PTSD from a previous car accident, and the team lead? Well, let's just say he changes personalities when water touches him. Wait, okay, what? The story is 6 out of 10. Even from the summary alone, some people can guess that the type of romance development and cliches, albeit a little unique there, is very K-drama-esque in its setup and tropiness. An overall typical storyline, at least from the introduction, and I feel like you can expect what will happen next. For fans of this style though, you will enjoy. The characters are 8 out of 10. As is normal for leads of this type of manhwa, each one has their own past and issues that they have to face, and this is more or less one of the primary ways that these characters will grow. I will say that personality switching is definitely new, but also weirdly within the scope of odd tropes from K-dramas. At the same time, the progression of how they become a couple made me chuckle at the sheer denseness of these people. The art is 7 out of 10. For those familiar with the romance or drama genre, you can expect the usual art style that heavily focuses on the characters, some light comedy and more random situations that cause the couple to be closer. Otherwise, it doesn't really have that much to give. So if you're a fan of modern romance manhwas that has K-drama vibes similar to The Perfect Contract from my previous videos, then It's Okay to Be Left Out might be something you would be interested in. Our shorter story for this week is I Was Reincarnated as the Abandoned Baby Princess, a reincarnation manhwa that I've currently read up to chapter 31 on. The focus of this story is, weirdly enough, a nameless individual who is an assassin in the modern world, but is reincarnated as an illegitimate princess in the backdrop of a historical Joseon or Korea. It's already one thing to at least not really name the main character, but it even makes it into a little bit of a story point that she doesn't actually have an actual name bestowed upon her by the king of that time. What makes it even more ridiculous is this backdrop is based off a novel that she read from that life as an assassin. It doesn't matter at this point though, as she is only aware that her character, the one that she inhabits the body of now, is in danger of being eliminated before she can even try living the second life. So for now, it's time to ensure her own survival. The potential is 8 out of 10. Having the skills of a modern assassin but in the setting of historical Joseon is definitely an interesting point, but so far it hasn't really been fully utilized just yet. Most of the early introduction has been about the current political situation our main character finds herself in. Otherwise, there is a lot of other setups here where it hasn't shown that it's a romance, but clearly there might be some room to go that direction, which is why I put that tag there. The art is 7 out of 10. Overall, a fine display. The art style is neither strong nor bad, it's merely sufficient to at least the first part of this story. One good note is that it's able to portray the underlying motives, feelings, and immediate struggles that the various parties of the royal house or concubines are going through to try and flex or ascertain and overall vie for power in this particular age. And at least for potential wise, it may have some future action scenes for our main character that fits her background. So if you enjoy newer stories and are a fan of historical political manhwas and don't mind that the potential for romance is there, then I Was Reincarnated as the Abandoned Baby Princess is one to keep an eye on. Welcome to the highlight portion of today's video. Our highlight today is the Baengri clan's Unwanted Granddaughter, which I've now read up to chapter 98 on. Info card description will have links to my original opinion. Baekri is our main character, and considering the timeline since I've covered this manhwa, it's actually been over a year at this point. Since then though, to be quite honest, there's been both a lot and yet not a lot of development in its plot and characters. From the differing situations between the Baengri family and that of the Namgung family, the various characters and other important social interactions that happen throughout, maybe some romance targets if they wish to pursue it other than just the main one they put on, and then Baengri having a fortuitous encounter that allows her to unlock abilities, but overall not really grow in strength much. Overall, it's been a slower development for sure, and now compared to a lot of the more manhwas that I've read over the past year and covered, it's definitely a more slower, different style. My previous scores for this manhwa were 6 out of 10 for art and potential. The art actually moves up to 8 out of 10. I previously noted that the art was more just neutral or just fine, but now that I've read a lot more, it's actually quite refined and well drawn or displayed, or however you want to describe it. Compared to other more manhwas though, this one does not really have that much action or politics for the matter, but more drama instead. The potential translates to a 6 out of 10 for story, as 70 plus chapters since I last covered this, there hasn't really been that many big events or story points that provide an overall picture of what this manhwa wants to achieve. We have enough plot to move from one scene arc or to the next arc, but it doesn't really engross me with its storytelling. The characters though are a little better at 7 out of 10. As is usual with more slower paced manhwas, this manhwa also uses the slower pace to at least try and develop some of these characters that it introduces. While Yeon is the main character, she's not the only one in the spotlight. Her father, the Namgung family, the Baengri family, and even others are given quite a lot of moments to help flesh out the world that they live in. While Mura manhwas are usually more about the action or deep story about revenge or how the martial world is like, the Baengri clan's Unwanted Granddaughter is one that instead focuses more on family and drama. So fans of that genre who also like a more backdrop may just enjoy. Would you agree or would you not? Comment down below your thoughts on this manhwa. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Write down in the comment section down below what manhwa you've been reading and I might just take a look. Till next time though, have a good read.